to appear. And there's Adam. Okay, so we will proceed then. Good morning. My name is Paul Cordingley. I'm the Vice Chair of the Toronto Preservation Board. We have quorum, so I am now calling meeting 20 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and is also being live streamed online at youtube.com// Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Preservation Board would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto Preservation Board at toronto.c/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Council has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council. As a reminder, please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at hertpb@toronto.ca to help with your motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Code Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the number and nature of the interest. And I see Adam.
No. Item 1, the 414 to 418 Church Street and 79 to 81 Granby Street. I ghost wrote, I guess is a way to describe it, portions of the heritage interpretation plan for their consultant. There's a conflict there.
Oh.
Also, item 20.3, I work for a BIA. The National Ballet School is not one of our members, but we do share a public laneway with them. So we've had interaction with them around the management of that space. So there's a conflict there as well.
Okay. And have you sent the...
I'll be submitting the form shortly.
Perfect. Thank you. And I believe, Peter.
Yep. I have 2 conflicts to declare, and those are in relation to PB 20.2, 20 Front Street West, and PB 20.5, 200 University Avenue. The applicants on both of these projects are clients of the planning firm that I work at. So I've sent the forms along to the clerks already.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on June 5th, 2024? Matthew, all in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, that is carried. So let's proceed with the agenda review. The first item is PB 20.1, 414, 416, and 418 Church Street, and 79 and 81 Granby Street, alterations to attributes of designated heritage properties under Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement. There are public speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it down. The next item is PB 20.2, 2022 Front Street West, alterations to a heritage property under Part 5, Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to amend the heritage easement agreement. There are public speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it down as well. The next item is PB 20.3, 105 Maitland Street, alterations to heritage attributes on designated heritage properties under Part 4, Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Would anyone care to hold this item down? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for someone to move. We have a staff report before us. I would ask someone to move the recommendations in the staff report. Okay, Mitchell, all in favor?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just before you take the vote, because Adam Wynn has declared an interest on this item, we should take this as a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so Adam, you've turned off your video. That's great. And so I will, if you will hold your hand up, and I will call names as I see them. All in favor? So I see myself, Peter, Wendy, Alex, Mitchell, Matthew, and Kurosh in favor, and none opposed. So
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was Paul, Peter, Wendy, Alex, Mitchell, and Matthew. Is that correct?
And Kurosh.
And Karush. Thank you very much.
Okay, so unanimous, so the item carries.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is PB 20.4, 101 Mason Boulevard, alterations to a heritage property and demolition of a building. Does anyone wish to hold this item? Wendy? Okay, so we'll hold it down. Okay. The next item is 20.5, 200 University Avenue, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes of a designated property under Part 4, Sections 33 and 34, 1.1 of the Ontario Heritage Act, requests for directions. There is a presentation from Heritage Planning staff, and there is a confidential attachment to this item. Does anyone wish to hold this item down? I am going to hold this item down. And last, we have 20.6, PB 20.6, 15 Elm Street, demolition of a designated property. Does anyone wish to hold this item down? Okay, seeing none, we have a staff report before us. Would anyone care to move the staff report? Alex? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that item is carried. So that brings us back to PB 20.1.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. The Elm Street item, I was hoping to hold it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So we will hold that.
Yeah,
Do we have to undo that vote, or clerks, or can we just simply put it back on the agenda?
No, I think you can take the vote again at the end, and that'll be the final vote. But we've recorded that Adam is holding this item.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we're back to PB 20.1, 414, 416, and 418 Church Street, and 79 and 81 Granby Street, alterations to attributes of designated heritage properties under Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement. So we have a staff report on this item. And
I believe there's been a conflict of interest.
there hasn't, yep.
It's item 1, right? I'm just making sure I'm turning my camera off for the right one.
Yep. And
okay, great. I'll be back in a bit.
Okay, you are off now, Adam. Great. And Georgia, you're presenting?
Yes, good morning. My name is Georgia Cush. I'm Senior Heritage Planner, and I'll be presenting a report recommending approval of the application to alter the properties at 414, 416, and 418 Church Street, and 79 and 81 Granby Street under Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and also to enter into a heritage easement agreement. Do we have slides?
To be made a presenter or to share slides.
This is clerk staff. We've just given Hans the ability to share.
Okay. Right, so would you move to the next slide, please? Thanks. The site is located on the southwest corner of Church and Granby Streets, and it's located within the McGill-Granby Village community. And it also includes the surface parking lot to the south at 412 Church Street. Next, please. So the properties at 414 to 418 Church Street contain a three-part complex known as the Stephen Murphy Houses and Store, which are prominent local buildings constructed circa 1891. The properties also have value in their contribution to the evolution of the Church Street neighborhood as the center of gay culture in Toronto. Next, please. The properties at 79 and 81 Granby Street contain a pair of semi-detached houses that are valued as representative examples of semi-detached Victorian era dwellings, whose design is typical of the Bay and Gable style, and they are known as the Robert Kidney houses. They also comprise a broader collection of surviving representative examples of this early period of land development in this community that continue to define and maintain the character of the community's late 19th century streetscape today. Next, please. Now, the proposal alters the properties by introducing a 32-story tower on the site with commercial uses at grade and residential in the upper levels. The parking lot south of the Church Street buildings will be replaced by a new base building, which is partially set back to reveal the south wall, which is not an attribute, of the Stephen Murphy House at 414 Church Street. And you can see that on the rendering at the top of this slide. The tower above is proposed to be stepped back 5 meters from Church Street, and it's behind the roof ridge of the Stephen Murphy houses. Next, please. Unsympathetic alterations and additions that have occurred over the years will be removed, and the houses will be rehabilitated for new commercial uses, while the store at the corner will be restored to its early 20th century appearance. Next, please. Now, in the original submission, the Robert Kidney houses on Granby Street were proposed to be demolished. Now they will be fully conserved, including their interiors and roofs, with select restoration of the house at 79 Granby Street, which has been altered and will be used. They will both be used as residential units. Next. Now here's an elevation of showing Granby Street, and due to the inability to provide vehicular access on the site, the westernmost end of the Granby Street elevation of 418 Church Street is proposed to be shortened by 1.8 meters to allow for vehicular access. Staff will be reviewing the details of this and of the rest of the proposal as part of the review of the conservation plan. So in closing, staff support the proposal as the heritage values and attributes of the properties will be conserved, consistent with the relevant municipal and provincial heritage policies. Also, a substantial amount of conservation work will be undertaken, given the interventions that have taken place over the years. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Georgia. We have a speaker registered on this item, Emad Gattas. Clerks, is Emad present? Good morning, Emad.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
You will have 5 minutes to speak. I'll let you know when you're getting close to the end of your time. Please go ahead.
Sounds good. I'll use much less than this. So, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Emad Gattas. I'm a senior associate at GBCA Architects. We are the heritage consultants on this file. First of all, I want to thank Georgia for preparing a positive staff report recommending approval for the alterations. Our office was involved since 2018 on this file, so pre-pandemic, The project have been through many alterations and iterations throughout the time. It's been through a global pandemic, a rise of interest rates, a listing, a designation, and most recently ministerial zoning order that changed the height of the development. So we're actually quite excited to see the project moving forward. And I'm not going to repeat the alterations or the changes that Georgia presented. They were pretty good. I'm simply here to answer any questions the board may have about the conservation strategy or the project in general on behalf of the applicant. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward for your questions if there's any.
Okay, thank you, Emet. Do the members have any questions of the speaker? Alex?
Yes, did I understand correctly that the interior of the houses are going to be, the ones on the side street are going to be considered heritage attributes and designated?
So no, the 79 to 81 Granby, the property is designated. The original intent was to demolish the buildings because they were not on the register. They became listed and designated along the way, and then we incorporated the properties within the development. We initially looked into retaining the front facades, removing all the interiors, but then later on through discussions, it was discussed that it made more sense to keep the building in its full, keep the interiors, but modify them as needed. So it's not going to be a facade retention system with a structural steel frame on the exterior. We're not going to need this anymore because we're keeping the building in full. So the interiors are not designated, so they will very likely change. They're not great interiors, but we will keep the structure and repair as needed, or replace as needed, essentially.
Right. Thank you.
Wendy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to hear that the plan is to keep the building in full. And maybe my question is not about like the building preservation. Well, I've been like passing in that neighborhood, and that is the commercial, and then you got like the parking. I just wonder what will happen to the parking.
So what will happen to the parking? So the ground level is going to be used for commercial purposes. Right now, it's envisioned to be retail. What exactly the retail is going to be, we don't know, but it's going to be for commercial purposes at the ground level.
So all those parking will be like will be embedded in the building, because those are also not just commercial, and of course that you want to have, you want to go to the restaurant there and shop there, then you can park in that parking lot. And would that be?
So where the parking lot is currently, it's going to be so it's going to be, there's going to be an entrance to the residential component, and the corner with McGill Street is going to be commercial. And right now the plans indicate that it's a cafe, but it's going to be a commercial tenant there. As for the parking, the intent is to have parking underground, so they're going to come from either McGill or Granby, and I think because both of the streets are one-way streets, so entrance will have to come from one way and exit from the other way. But all the parking is going to be underground. There's not going to be parking on site, to my knowledge.
Okay, I see. Thank you. So that will be arrangements for the parking in the future. Thank you.
Mitchell?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I assume the facades of the lower portion of the houses along Church Street are gone because of the way they've been built out to the sidewalk. So I'm just wondering if those two arch windows are based on kind of archival photographs or anything, or if it's like kind of a contemporary intervention at that level.
That's a very good question. So the intent is that they're a contemporary intervention. So we did have a suggestion to bring back the original front entrances for the portions of the building that are residential in type. Now the thing is that these are not going to be entrances anymore. They're going to be exposed for retail. So usually door openings are not that wide, and also Like, we don't know what was the style of that opening. Was it a flat arch? Was it a segmental arch? Was it an archway? Was it a stone arch? Like, there's a lot of things we don't know, and we didn't want to restore without sufficient historical documentation, which we didn't really have on that building. The earliest photos we had was from 1907, but it only showed the corner building without the residential type. And then other than this was from the 1970s. So it didn't really show us what they looked like before. So to answer your question, the archways are contemporary interventions, and they're a little bit of a hint of the openings that were on the ground level when it used to be the barns and stables. So it gives a little bit of that hint of what the opening would have been like, and I think it works pretty well.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? I have one, which is just to understand the two Granby properties. Will they be physically connected to the rest of the development, or are they basically remaining as a standalone structure?
They will remain independent from the development.
Okay.
So they're going to be residential in use, and they're not going to be physically connected whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay. And there were concerns raised about the stability of the soil in the area. Has that been assessed and impact on, there is a heritage property immediately adjacent as well. Are you confident that that the stability has been addressed?
Yeah, so actually this was a conversation this morning, and I got this email as well. So the it's a fair concern. Now that 79 to 81 Granby, we're not doing excavation underneath, so there's likely not going to be any further disturbances to the soil. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I don't want to put a stamp on this, but we don't see major concerns there due to the fact that the excavation is going to be further away. I know that the applicant had multiple conversations with the owner about the stability of the dwelling. And they will be doing a full interior pre-construction survey and vibration monitoring during construction, from my understanding.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, any last questions of the speaker? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much, Emad, for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Members, do we have questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, we have a staff report before us. Would anyone care to move the staff report? Okay, Peter. And again, because we have an interest declared, this will be a recorded vote. So if you would raise your hand, and I will read your names off for the item. All in favor? And I see Paul, Mitchell, Wendy, Alex, Kurush, Matthew, and Peter. So the item is carried. Okay, that brings us to PB 20.2, 20 and 22 Front Street West, alterations to a heritage property under Part 5, Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to amend the Heritage Agreement, Easement Agreement, Ward 13. Georgia, are you presenting on this item again?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Excellent.
This report recommends approval to alter the property at 20 Front Street West with the entrance address of 22 under Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act and to amend the existing Heritage Easement Agreement. Next slide, please. This site is located on the north side of Front Street West between Yonge and Bay Streets. It's also located within the Union Station Heritage Conservation District. It is also designated under Part 4, and it is currently subject to a Heritage Easement Agreement registered on title. Next, please. So this is, or was, the Gowans Kent building. It is a classically influenced commercial building constructed in 1923. However, the only remaining heritage attributes are found on the primary elevation facing Front Street. And you can see that in the images, the side walls are new construction. The property was redeveloped in the early 1990s with the construction of BCE Place. and was subject to significant alterations, which involved the removal of the side and the rear walls, interventions to the ground floor storefronts, and the addition of new construction on top. Next, please. The proposal is for a new 52-story residential tower with retail at grade. This involves the tower being stepped back 5 meters from Front Street and 3.5 meters from the west, and a graduated step back on the east. Next, please. Access to the site for construction is very limited on this site. So the applicant is proposing that the lower 4 stories be retained in situ, while the upper levels are dismantled and reconstructed onto new backup construction to match the original configuration and proportion. Staff strongly encouraged the applicant to explore other options that would not result in dismantling of the upper levels, but it was the only way they could access the site for construction. It will, however, provide an opportunity to upgrade the stone anchors and the building envelope, which will extend the life of the stone cladding units. The lower level metal storefronts will be taken off site for restoration, including selective replacement where necessary, and they will be reinstalled in a configuration that more closely matches the original, since they had previously been altered. Also, new historically appropriate windows will be installed, and there will be new east and west sidewalls, which you can see the west wall in this image. And they've been designed to be consistent with the front facade, but in a more contemporary expression to reinforce the distinguishability. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, I meant to show this earlier. So here you can see the lower levels that will be retained in situ, with the upper levels reconstructed. The proposal conserves the attributes of the property and respects the historic and architectural characteristics associated with the district, and consistent with the guidelines described in the Union Station HCD plan. And as such, staff recommend the application be approved and that the heritage easement agreement be amended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. We have one speaker registered on this item. It's Dan Elon. Dan, are you there?
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Great. Welcome to the TPB. You have 5 minutes to speak. I'll let you know when you're getting close to the end of your time. So please proceed.
Paul, am I able to share my screen with the presentation that was submitted to the panel?
Clerks, are you able to accommodate that?
This is the clerk. Dan, you've been given sharing rights.
Wait a moment to make sure that everyone can see that. Maybe Paul, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen now?
Yep.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Elon. I'm from ERA Architects. We're the heritage consultant on this project. I've been working on this for a few years. I want to thank Georgia for her presentation. I will try to cover other matters that Georgia hasn't covered, and I'm also available to answer questions about the overall project. So I'm going to just skip ahead to the context. Obviously, you're aware that this is right near Union Station. The proposal allows for the redevelopment of the site. As Georgia had mentioned, it had been redeveloped previously. Some of the things that had changed was the overcladding of the west with parging, and then this stone return. Those are not original to the building. And you can see that through the historic images. I'm going to show you a few. The focus of my presentation is actually going to be on the historic storefronts, which we're quite excited about. But also this forecourt for BCE Place presents this opportunity to improve the west elevation of this building and create a much more welcoming presence and pedestrian experience. So this is a stitched image of the south elevation at the ground level showing the historic storefronts. You can see a number of things that have happened here. A number of alterations to the storefront occurred over the course of time. The main one happening with the Aaron Landau improvements. And so that's what Georgia was referring to when the property was redeveloped. You can see here there's a canopy that's obstructing some of the decorative elements of the entrance. These entrances have been modified, and I'm going to show you some of the historic images that helps us understand the extent of the changes, in addition to the archival drawings from Landau's time and what we're looking to do to essentially restore that condition. So this is an image from the 1920s showing the building being constructed. The storefronts are being installed at this stage. And this image is very helpful because it shows us the storefront with the decorative grille over the entrance and these full height side lights that were present at that time. There's many other details that we're using to help inform the work that we're doing to prepare a conservation plan, which will be submitted to the city at a later date. But we use these images to better understand the property and the details. So these were the improvements. The work was done by Amber Forge. Aaron Landau is the architect of the project. I'm just focusing on this part of the storefront to show you, the historic image shows those full height side lights. Essentially what they did is they removed the side lights, they created a new transom and recessed door entries. And so that was from a single door to 4 doors. And the effect of that, has caused, not as open and welcoming experience for pedestrians. The canopy, the recessed doors, the wood doors, which are, anachronistic. So we're looking to create a much more open and welcoming experience. I'm going to show you, essentially, this is an overlay of the drawings. So we're going to reinstate these full height side lights. We're going to provide new metal doors with glazed return. So as a pedestrian walking down the street, you'll be able to see into the residential entry and the retail much more easily, and it'll be a much more welcoming experience. And by setting back that door, we want to do an interesting treatment behind the grille above the entry, where it will be rear illuminated. So it really highlights that element of the storefronts as in the evening. And then as well, the other bays of the storefronts will be rehabilitated because there is some deterioration. These are cast iron or cast steel elements. And so the way they degrade is a bit different than a conventional storefront. So we want to ameliorate all of those conditions. I think that's it for me. This is just the overall image of the development, which George has previously shown. Thank you so much for the time. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have questions of Dan? And does anyone have questions of staff? Wendy?
Yeah, yes, maybe to Dan, sorry. So, well, it's mentioned that the upper portions of the south wall will be demolished to allow for construction access. So I would like to know more about what will be like the limitation, and it seems some other building that I have passed by, and so if you refer to the slide number 5, and I mean from the staff, and then the proposal rendering, so that means that will be only with 2 floor left. So
Sorry.
yeah.
Well, the strategy is to temporarily dismantle and then reinstate. So there's no permanent technology that's used for demolition, is just referring to the. So the intent is to document the entire facade, and then each of the stone elements that make up the facade would be dismantled, individually identified and labeled, stored, and then reinstated into their exact location, save and except for any units that require replacement due to damage. There is some erosion at the cornice level. There was an engineer has done what they're referred to as drops, so vertical drops. They've gone and surveyed the entire facade to assess the condition. And we've reviewed all of the imagery that they've produced in their report, which is also included in our heritage impact assessment, to identify the condition. So Since those units were being replaced at the top of the building for repair or will be patch repaired, the approach here was to dismantle the top. There are some very difficult site constraints that require us to take this approach. It's not in the staff report, but it's been provided. I could share the screen again, but maybe this image will help to, we'll still need the clerk's help to get access again to share the screen. There's another diagram that may better help explain the requirement for dismantling. The TTC subway actually runs directly underneath the heritage facade on the eastern extent, and the building was previously underpinned. And so there's not an ability to, as far as we've been able to determine, to provide certainly not a full height retention structure. The size of the retention structure expands, and the loads of that retention structure would not be permitted by the TTC based on the engineer on the team's experience and inputs. And so they're still trying to explore ways to retain parts of the facade externally, but right now the approach is to retain internally. And again, as you go up the height of the building, the extent of retention, the structure that's required to hold the facade in place expands, and then that creates limitations on the extent of excavation for the below grade works that are required for the development. It imposes constraints on where the core is located. It gets quite complex in terms of how do we solve for the site. So together with these inputs, we've reviewed the options. And so the dismantling of upper floors allows for the constructability of the site with a smaller scale retention structure and still with crane access and movements, staging, all of which we're trying to balance among the competing objectives. So that's the kind of background, which I wasn't planning to get into, but if the question was there, happy to share more if that's necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Dan? Okay, thank you very much, Dan, for being here this morning. Any questions of staff? Okay. Adam, I'm not seeing your face. Did you declare an interest on this item, or we need a recorded vote, so it would be helpful to see you. Are you able to turn your camera on? There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so again, we'll have a recorded vote. I have a staff report before us. All those in favor, please hold your hand up and I'll read out your names. I'm sorry, I guess I have to ask someone to move it, but that'll be me, so I'll move it. Okay, so all in favor? Okay, so I see myself, Wendy, Mitchell, Adam, Alex, Kurush, and Matthew. So that's unanimous. The item is carried. And that brings us to item 20.4, 101 Mason Boulevard, alterations to a heritage property and demolition of a building in Ward 8. Emily, are you presenting?
Yeah, Emily's presenting. This is her first presentation. Here we go.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I have a slide deck that I've prepared.
Well, Chair, could I get the permission to share? Well, Chair, can I get permission to share?
Yes,
the clerk,
you can.
Yeah, we just pass the question on to Han. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning. My name is Emily Game. I'm a senior heritage planner and I'm presenting on agenda item PB 20.4. Staff recommends that City Council approve the alterations proposed for the designated heritage property at 101 Mason Boulevard under Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. As you can see, the subject property is located within the Cricket Club neighborhood on the east side of Mason Boulevard, south of Wilson Avenue and west of Yonge Street. Next slide, please. The subject property contains Loretto Abbey, an institutional complex built in 1928. It also contains a detached garage, also built in 1928. In 1952, additions were made to the north wing and to the chapel building. Additionally, an infirmary building was constructed in 1989. The subject property is designated under Part 4 of the Act. However, it is important to note that the infirmary building and the detached garage are not included in the reasons for designations and are not considered heritage attributes of the property. Here we have two views of Loretto Abbey from Mason Avenue. The photograph on the left shows a partial view of the east elevation of the school wing and chapel. The photograph on the right shows a partial view of the primary or west elevation. The proposed addition will not impact these elevations. Next slide, please. Here we have the proposed site plan showing the location of new construction annotated in blue. The infirmary building proposed to be demolished is shown in pink, and the location of the one-story service component is shown in red. As previously mentioned, the infirmary building is not a heritage attribute, and it is excluded from the reasons for designation. The addition proposes to connect the convent wing to the addition to allow for an increase of an instruction space, an athletic facility, student drop-off, new cafeteria, specialty classrooms, and will incorporate 21st century learning spaces and accessibility throughout the building. Next slide, please. Here are two partial views of the north wing. The photograph on the left shows a partial view of the north elevation where the addition is proposed. The photograph on the right shows a portion of the east elevation of the convent wing and the one-story service component proposed to be demolished. Next slide, please. The photograph on the left shows the east elevation of the north wing. This fire escape is proposed to be removed as part of the redevelopment of the property. The photograph on the right shows a partial view of the one-story service component that will be removed as part of the redevelopment. Next slide, please. Here we have east and west axonometric views of 101 Mason Boulevard, which shows the proposed addition. As you can see, the addition is partially located in the footprint of the infirmary building and set back from the original Abbey building as to not detract or compete with the 1928 structure. The existing E-shaped Abbey building will be retained in situ. Parts of its interior and exterior building envelope are proposed to be upgraded for accessibility, thermal performance, and interior comfort, and this includes installing new windows and completing various rehabilitation works on the interior. The Abbey's landscape setting, defined by its deep setback from Mason Boulevard, curved driveway, relationship to the adjacent ravine, tree-line boundary along Mason Boulevard will all be maintained. The proposed addition will not encroach on the ravine, and the landscape screening along Mason Boulevard is proposed to be maintained and extended with the inclusion of a new sidewalk. Next slide, please. The proposed addition has a rectilinear massing, a compatible material palette of neutral brick, metal cladding with a strong horizontal orientation, and a glazed reveal. It has been designed to be physically compatible with, yet subordinate to the existing form and surrounding landscape. Here we have two renderings of the main entrance of the science and cafeteria block, showing the scale, massing, and proposed material palette. The alterations to the attributes of the Abbey are relatively minor. They involve some new windows within the north wing of the complex and include blocking up several windows to allow for the construction of the new addition. Although blocking up the windows on the convent's north wing will alter the fenestration, these windows are primarily located on the second floor and will not be visible from the public realm. The new windows will be designed in a manner that matched the original windows based on archival documentation. The proposed addition will use glazing to mitigate visual impacts to the north elevation of the building, and this will contribute to the overall visual cohesiveness of the building while retaining the legibility of the Abbey's E-shaped plan. In addition, The addition will be screened behind the existing hedgerow of trees on Mason Boulevard and will have limited visibility from the public right-of-way. Parking will be located within the footprint of the 1989 Infirmary building immediately north of the addition. Next slide, please. So in summary, staff support the proposed addition and are of the opinion that the conservation strategy and mitigation measures conserve the property's cultural heritage values, character, and attributes, and are consistent with policy framework. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Emily. Do we have questions of staff? Seeing none. Any discussion amongst ourselves? Alex?
I think it's really more a comment than a question to be discussed among ourselves, but it's so refreshing to see a proposal that doesn't have a 47-story tower sprouting out of a facade. And I guess that's an advantage of not being in the downtown core. I have some memories of the infirmary building performing at a Christmas concert for some ancient sisters once upon a time. And I recall it was quite attractive, at least in the lobby area. So I'm sorry to see it become a parking area. But I realize it probably doesn't, an infirmary building doesn't fit in very well with the plans for a school extension. But overall, I'm quite happy with this proposal. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I have a staff report before me. Would anyone care to move the staff report? Alex? Okay, all in favor? Adam, I can't see if your hand, you're kind of falling off the bottom of the screen. Are you in favor? Okay, so the motion is carried. Okay, because PB 20.5 has a confidential attachment, I will move it to the end of the agenda. We'll do it last. And we'll proceed to 20.6, which is 15 Elm Street, demolition of a designated property, Ward 11. And is it Aaron that's presenting?
Good morning, through you. Yes, this is Erin Smith presenting. I'll just
Good
wait for the
morning, Erin.
slides to come up.
Sure, I just need a sharing permission.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Erin Smith, a senior heritage planner with Heritage Planning, presenting item PB 20.6 at 15 Elm Street, demolition of a designated heritage property. Next slide, please. The subject property at 15 Elm Street is located on the south side of Elm Street between Yonge and Bay Streets in the city's first immigrant neighborhood, the Ward. It is situated to the west of Harry Barbarian Lane. Next slide, please. This slide shows that the property is adjacent to and nearby several other heritage properties on the city's Heritage Register, shown on our Heritage Register mapping here. Next slide, please. This is an image of the property at 15 Elm Street. The property was individually designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act in 2023 through Designation Bylaw 742/2023. This designation bylaw is currently under appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and I know that there is a hearing scheduled for the designation to be heard next week. Next slide, please. This slide shows the property at 15 Elm Street within its current context looking west, with property 17 Elm Street to the right and Harry Barbarian Lane to the left. Next slide, please. This slide shows the property within its context looking east along Elm Street. Next slide, please. Thanks. This property is associated with a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan application for the properties at 15 and 17 Elm Street, highlighted on the left here, to replace the buildings with a mixed-use building shown on this slide. The zoning bylaw amendment application is also currently under appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. A heritage permit application under the Ontario Heritage Act has been submitted to demolish the heritage building at 15 Elm Street to allow for the construction of this new mixed-use building at 15 to 17 Elm. And that heritage permit application to demolish is what is before the board today. The application states that the removal of the existing building at 15 Elm Street is necessary in order to accommodate the new development, and the proposal is to demolish the designated heritage building and all of its associated heritage attributes found within the bylaw. Demolition of a designated significant heritage resource is contrary to the intent of the PPS, the city's official plan, and the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada. Given that City Council has designated and recognized the existing building as a significant built heritage resource, it should be conserved, and therefore staff are recommending the refusal of the proposed demolition application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions of staff? Adam?
Yes, thank you for that presentation. This property was first identified as a potential heritage building by the historical board back in the 90s, and then I submitted the nomination for it within the past half a decade. I'm wondering if they provided any clear information as to why they are wanting to demolish it and why they need the demolition to accommodate this new building. That is a new direction from them from the previous discussions I've heard in the public consultations. Is there a specific reason? Is it for a staging area? Is it for ground floor retail? I very much think this Confederation era cottage could be conserved within that building design.
Through you, Chair, this heritage permit application is being submitted in association with that zoning bylaw and site plan application that's been submitted. And those propose to demolish the buildings at 15 and 17 Elm for a mixed use tower. And that is the reason that the demolition application has been submitted for 15 Elm Street.
Okay. That tower design has had some pretty challenging design features. I think, you know, not to go too off topic, but the fact it hangs out over the sidewalk, we have ice accumulation, something we need to address. But thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, any further discussion amongst ourselves? Adam?
In the previous consultation, the applicant specifically wanted to put a speakeasy on the main floor. You know, preserving a Confederation era cottage could add an interesting element to the idea of having a speakeasy, which is, you know, a hidden bar behind something. So I encourage to definitely preserve that building. It's alarming to hear they're still pursuing demolition, where the community has been saying for almost 30 years this does warrant protection.
Any other comments? Okay, I have a staff report before me. Would anyone like to move the staff report? Karosh? All in favor? Okay, so it is carried. And so now we'll go back to PB 20.5, 200 University Avenue, alterations to and demolition of the heritage attributes of a designated property under Part 4, Sections 33 and 3411 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Request for directions, Ward 10. And I'd emphasize again, there is a confidential component that we will get to for the moment we are in public session. And do we have a staff report in the public session?
Yes, there is. Through you, Chair, there is a presentation available.
There is a presentation. Okay. Could we hear the presentation, please?
Good morning. My name is Erin Smith, and I am with Heritage Planning, presenting item PB 20.5, request for directions report that is regarding a designated heritage property at 200 University Avenue. The report is seeking instruction with respect to an application to alter and demolish heritage attributes of the designated heritage property relating to an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application that has been appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. As mentioned, there will be a public and confidential component to this, as the report addresses matters subject to litigation and a proposal on which the applicant has made with prejudice. First, I will make the public presentation describing the with prejudice proposal, and then after which I'll turn it over to the chair to initiate the in-camera session to provide staff analysis and recommendations of the city solicitor. Next slide, please. This location map shows the subject site, the property of 200 University Avenue, highlighted in red. It is on the southwest corner of University Avenue and Richmond Street West. with frontages on University Avenue, Richmond, and Simcoe Streets. Next slide, please. The subject property comprises the Sun Life building, which was designed by John C. Parkin for the Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada, a rare representative and early example of a modernist office tower in the city. It is individually designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. Here we're looking at the building's north and the east elevations, comprising a 14-story office tower building with a 2-story mechanical penthouse, or lantern as it was called because it was once illuminated. There's also a public open plaza that's created along University Avenue within the building's setback that's shown on the image to the left. Next slide, please. This slide shows the property's west and south elevations. Next slide, please. The property's designation bylaw also includes some interior heritage attributes within the lobby that are shown in these images on the slide, such as the metal door frames, travertine wall paneling, granite flooring, an elevator lobby with travertine walls, and stainless steel elevator doors and surround. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted a with prejudice settlement offer, meaning that these plans are public. This slide shows a conceptual rendering of the proposal, which contemplates a 37-story tower addition above the existing heritage building, which will be retained below in situ with alterations to and demolition of some heritage attributes to convert it to residential uses, which now includes some affordable housing. The tower addition uses and extends some of the vertical perimeter columns of the heritage building for lateral support. These perimeter columns are proposed to be altered to increase their bearing capacity, extended and reskinned in a manner that retains their existing width, depth, and appearance. The existing curtain wall system is proposed to be replaced with a custom high-performance curtain wall system, replicating the existing material profile, detailing, and finished appearance, while allowing for venting requirements for the new residential uses. The interior heritage attributes within the lobby are proposed to be demolished for the tower's new core. Some of these heritage attributes, such as the travertine wall paneling and granite flooring, are proposed to be salvaged and reinstated within the new reconfigured lobby. The existing mechanical penthouse, or lantern, is proposed to be restored and backlit as originally designed. Next slide, please. This slide shows a partial clip of the proposed ground floor plan, highlighted with the arrows in blue. A portion of the recessed glass-clad ground floor along the west elevation on Simcoe Street is proposed to be altered to no longer be recessed. In this location, the granite terracing, entrance steps, and doors would be demolished. The proposal retains the original recessed condition at the corner shown in the rendering on the right. Next slide, please. This slide shows a summary of the key changes between the original application and the settlement offer, which is shown on the right. The tower addition above the heritage building has been raised to suspend higher above the existing mechanical penthouse. The column extensions at the four corners of the heritage building are eliminated, and there's no longer an addition proposed within the public open plaza. The revised proposal requires approval under Section 33 and Section 34(1)(1) of the Ontario Heritage Act to permit the alteration to and removal of heritage attributes from a designated heritage property. The city solicitor requires further instructions, and this report contains advice and communications that would be subject to solicitor-client privilege, and so we would enter now the in-camera session.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I think you're on mute.
I apologize. I have construction right outside my window, so I've been muting a lot. I hope I'm not too hard to hear. Okay, we have a confidential attachment to this item. The board will need to meet in closed session to review this attachment. Members, I will move the motion to go to the closed session and ask the clerk to display the motion. And I will read it aloud that the Toronto Preservation Board meet in closed session to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Okay. I would ask all in favor of this motion? And I presume this has to be recorded as well. So I'm seeing myself, Alex, Karush, Matthew, I believe I saw Mitchell, and Wendy, and Adam. I'm trying to remember, did you declare a conflict on this?
It was just Peter on this item.
Okay.
So the vote can carry here with 6 to meet in closed session.
Okay, so
Oh,
the
unless Adam
motion-
wants to vote now.
Adam, are you going to offer your vote on the
I'm
motion
going to a closed session?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine. I will not be the bouncer at the door, though.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion is carried unanimously. And so I'll ask the clerk to close the meeting to members of the public and to only provide access to the members and appropriate staff for the closed section in the portion of this meeting. And as well, the live feed will be suspended until the closed session is over. Members and staff, I'd also remind you to arrange your surroundings so that no other person observes any portion of the closed session debate.
Mr. Chair, just bear with us. We're just closing the meeting and pausing the recording.
Terrific.
Okay, Mr. Chair, confirming that we have everyone back into the meeting. We're recording again. I see 7 members present, knowing that Peter is absented himself from this item.
Okay, thank you. So we are back in open session and we'll continue considering item PB 20.5 publicly. Are there any last questions of staff in a public context on this item? Okay, seeing none, does anyone have any further wish to speak on this item? No? Okay. In that case, we have a staff report before us. I ask, does anyone wish to move the recommendations in the staff report? Well, I will move them then. Can I have a show of hands? Again, this is a recorded vote. All in favor of the staff report? And I'm seeing Paul, Mitchell, Adam, Alex, Kurush, Matthew, and Wendy. Are you in favor or opposed? I'm sorry, I think you're muted.
I oppose.
Okay, record as opposed. So the motion does pass. It carries. And that's our final item for today, folks. Thanks very much for attending today, and thanks for your patience as I fumble my way through a full meeting, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.